Hello. It has been several minutes. Sorry if I'm a little bit sideways. I'm using a real camera, not a webcam, but my tripod, I'm not quite sure that I have it adjusted right. But yeah, here I am. Over a year since the release of Saving Summer, and I am here to deliver one of the videos that I promised well over a year ago. The lifetimes that I have lived since my last upload, man. We're not here to talk about that. The point is, I'm back. I'm here, I'm back. And let me just tell y'all, okay, in the summer of 2021, when I had first sent the first draft of Saving Summer to my editor, I bought every shirt, like from summer 2021 to like mid 2022, I bought every shirt I saw in Walmart or Forever 21, RIP, or just any cheap store that said some effect of be kind on it, because I was like, I'm gonna wear these shirts in my Saving Summer videos. Because of, I mean, if you've read the book, you know. If you know, you know, be kind. But I am not the same size that I was in the summer of 2021, let me tell you. She's a little tight on me now. I went and looked at the tag this morning because I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna make a Saving Summer video, I'm gonna wear one of those shirts. And I looked at the tag and it said small, and I'm like, oh boy, I hope it goes over my head. And it did. So here we are. I gotta make these videos before the shirts just stop fitting me altogether. So welcome to 5 Facts About Saving Summer, spoiler edition. I'm just gonna jump in. We're already, I'm just gonna jump in. All right, so I mentioned in the non-spoiler version that there were several previous versions of Saving Summer that I had toyed with before the epiphany for this one came to me in the middle of class one day at college. So I thought I would share what some of them were. The very original version that I was kind of drafting in my head, mid to late 2017, was more of a short story. And it was basically just, it was the first scene, but the whole Europe trip wasn't really a concept yet, so they were just at school. It was the first day of senior year, and then a handful of characters got their own narration bit where they reflected on their relationships with Summer, who wasn't named Summer yet, or even named at all. And she didn't have any narration bits. It was just, you know, Tim, or whoever, the character was not named at the time, but basically Tim announces, hey, like, this person has passed away, and several people go through their own narration of like, oh my gosh, like, this was my story with her, this is my feelings, my thoughts. If I had to tell you who got one based on the characters that ended up being named later on, it was Nolan. It always started with Nolan. Marta, Esme, I think Tim, although he was the school principal in this version, not like I said, there was no Europe trip. Possibly Katie, Jonah for sure, and that's all I can remember. Oh, and in the version it was directly announced that she died by suicide. It wasn't said like in the assembly, Tim or whoever was announcing it was like, Summer died by suicide over the weekend. It wasn't ambiguous at all. And it was originally like that in the version we all know and love as well, but that was actually one of the pieces of feedback I got from my fiction writing class, that Tim probably wouldn't legally be able to announce that. Also, like, why would Summer's mother tell him that? Yeah, so there was briefly a time where in this current version, Summer's mother was actually close friends with Tim, and that was how Summer ended up going on the Europe trip despite her grades, but I didn't really like that the more I thought about it. I didn't end up vibing with the original short story version. It was kind of giving 13 Reasons Why, so I set it aside for a while. There was another version where Nolan just reads Summer's notebook and that's it, that's the plot. But again, that's basically 13 Reasons Why, except the notebook wasn't directed at him or anyone in particular, it was just her diary. There was a version where after the assembly, and this is still taking place at school on the first day of senior year, Nolan meets like a kind of guardian angel figure who makes him watch his past year and replay how he treated Summer, but he can't change anything, and I wasn't really sure what the overall message was supposed to be for that version, so I ended up scrapping that as well. The version that I went with, and please remember this is the spoiler version, so if you don't want me to give away the ending, and a big part of the overall message, you don't have to watch this. You can stop watching now and go read the book and then come back. I wanted to make sure that it was clear that even though Nolan treated Summer poorly, it wasn't up to him to save her. You know, and changing his behavior towards her wasn't going to change the fact that she was sick and needed that professional help. He still should have been a better person, and he learned that and changed through his friendship and relationship with Summer, but I wanted to do it in a way, I wanted it to be explicitly clear that love wasn't going to save her. We're not about that trope here. We don't do that here. As for more minor changes, basically there were various ways I wanted Nolan to be able to see the old timeline and reveal some of the things that happened in it that just didn't happen in the new timeline. Obviously, I settled on the notebook being his link to that timeline. There was a version where he and Summer went to a museum and there was an exhibit of mirrors, and one of the mirrors let him peek into the old timeline. I replaced that with the scene in her bedroom where they joke about the mirror being able to take them to a different timeline on her closet door, because I wasn't super into, you know, the mirror to the past thing. I didn't really feel like that fit well. It was important to me that some of those details about the past were revealed, and the notebook felt like the best way to do that. There was at one point, I don't think it made it out of the outline, but there was a point where Esme was also supposed to have been sent back, and she and Nolan connected at the Christmas party and tag teamed their mission, but I thought having someone else shift timelines would take away from the meaning, so I ended up scrapping that as well. Number 2, again, this is the spoiler version of the video, so I am very much about to give away the ending. The scene that was the absolute hardest for me to write is Summer's final scene and Nolan finding out. And by hardest, I mean that this was so far the hardest scene I ever had to write in any of the projects that I've ever worked on. And if you know me, you know that I've been working on several different projects over the last 10 to 15 years, so as more of my projects come to publication in the coming years, you'll see that there were some rough scenes in some of those projects, and this scene was the hardest. Like the entire time I am writing Summer's death scene, I am trying to reason with myself, like maybe there's still a way to save her. And I even played with an alternate or choose your own destiny ending where Nolan brings her a phone charger and she lives and gets help. So the message is still there that love couldn't save her and that she needed that professional help to get better, but everyone I ran it by basically said the same thing, that like it would absolutely ruin the message if she lived. I actually was really insecure about the ending when I sent out my first beta copies, and I was worried that it would send the wrong message if she didn't live to get better. Or it would be a toxic trope about, she had to die in order for Nolan to understand and fulfill his purposes. But my beta readers and my editor all understood the message that I was trying to send and assured me that the only way to convey that was to let Summer die. But wow, writing that scene, shout out to my therapist. I had to take breaks from writing that novel because it would trigger me sometimes, which is why I don't hold any judgment against anyone who, due to their own triggers, tells me that this novel just isn't for them. Like I get it. Like I would take breaks and work on a different project, which is actually one that I sent to my editor about a month ago. So we'll talk more about that in another video. But I would take breaks and work on something else because I could not get through that scene in one take. Like the amount of times I had to read it in editing, like reread it, go back, like I did like get kind of numb to it after a point, but like I could not write that in one take. And Nolan finding out, that scene was hard to get through as well. There were several different versions of it. There was one where he blacked out, and when he ran out of the community center, when he woke up, he was in the hospital with his parents there, and Esme went with him to make sure he was okay. And he was wanting to look for Summer there, like maybe she was just in the hospital, recovering from her attempt and she'd be fine. I didn't finish much of that version before I scrapped it and kept the version that y'all got, which was how I originally wrote it. But yeah, that scene was rough because I was like, I want Summer to respond to him calling her name and for her to answer her phone and for everything to be okay, but obviously that's not how it was going to go. Oh, and while we're talking about this scene, I did want to point out that the method Summer used to take her life is vague on purpose. I didn't want to go into detail. I know that's kind of the advice that's given to authors writing about suicide scenes. I tried to give kind of an idea of one or two things she might have done, but because we know she gets something out of her suitcase, and two of the things in there are, I'm not gonna go into more detail than that, but you know, you can imagine how she might have done it, but I will never confirm, I will never go into detail about how she actually did it. And even telling you that much is pushing it. So if you ever come back to this video and happen to notice that a big chunk of it is missing, yeah, don't worry about it. On a lighter note, I thought I would tell you about the first scenes that I wrote because I rarely ever write a book in fully chronological order. I know writing scenes out of order is not advised and all of that, but the way that my brain works, that's how I have to do it. So the first scene I wrote was the first scene of the book, up until the part where Nolan goes to class after talking to Summer at school. I think I might have written Summer's first narration bit before I skipped around, but I don't remember for sure. On the second day of working on the project, possibly even still the first day, I wrote the flashback scene where Nolan and Summer are leaving prom, and then it goes into the flashback of the last thing he said to her in the old timeline. So the flashback scene itself didn't change too much from its original version. I just kept visualizing it, so I wanted to write it early on. That scene is one of my favorites. It's just very important to me and my vision to the project as a whole, and it meant a lot to me, so I'm proud of how little needed to be changed throughout the editing process. Now, I do want to talk about Summer being coded autistic and what would have happened if she had actually been able to get tested for it, because I think I talked about this a little in my author's note that I was like, I want representation, but Summer dies. So, yeah, so I think I talked more about my feelings on having Summer die before she can get a diagnosis in my author's note in the book, so I'm not going to go too much into it here. If you're curious, my thoughts on that, I said it best in the author's note and in the pinned TikTok I have. If you have my TikTok, if it's not private at the moment, it's intermittently private because I am a teacher, so you know, but yeah, I won't get too much into that, but I do want to talk about what would have happened if she had lived and been able to get tested. So I was toying with pretty early on in this version the idea of Summer being autistic, but the thing that really made me decide to commit to it was when my YA literature class in spring 2020, we had to read a book with an autistic character, and I won't say what the book was. I mean, you can probably find it on my Goodreads reviews, but the gist is it was written by an author that knew a guy who knew a guy who knew a guy who had autism. And I just remember venting with all of my classmates about how much we hated this book and how poorly the character was written. So shout out to Dr. Lewis for assigning us that book, because I was never more determined to write autistic characters after that. Now it was tricky to have her, it was tricky to write her coded autistic because of how her mother's character is written, just how everything has to happen. It was going to be nearly impossible for her to get a diagnosis within the timeline of the book while staying true to how I wanted the other characters to be written. Quick sidebar here. I do want to say that I am writing a character who is explicitly diagnosed autistic, and a story that gets to explore that and her character and just that side of things. That story is with my editor as we speak. Again, I will talk more about that in another video, but Summer is not going to be my only autistic representation, I promise you. But So there will be a story about an explicitly diagnosed autistic character and her story, and her like love and acceptance for herself. I myself was diagnosed with autism at the age of 14, and I definitely don't speak for everyone in the community, so I don't want this to come off as like Summer Madison is the beacon of autistic representation, nor is the character of my next project. And I don't plan for all of my main characters to be autistic or autistic coded. I wanted to explain where the main inspiration to make Summer Coded Autistic came from. So after that class was when I started incorporating Grant, Jimmy, and Jean into the story. And I originally had them just show up for the first time at the dance, but my editor advised me to introduce them earlier and incorporate them into the plot before that, which I agreed with. Now, if Summer had been able to actually get the test, she would have been diagnosed with autism. Like I keep saying she's coded to be autistic, but like autistic, just because she was never actually able to get diagnosed within her timeline. But she is autistic, and she would have gotten the diagnosis had she been able to get tested. And again, I am writing at least one more autistic character in my stack of upcoming projects, so we will be able to explore more perspectives and storylines related to autism, but Summer's storyline is a reality for many people as well, and I don't want to ignore that part. I do talk about that more in my author's note in the book, and how her story connects with my story. The last spoiler I'm going to give you, I'm begging you to read the book first. If you're still at this point in the video and you haven't read the book, I am judging you. Please read the book. But just wanted to end things on this because it is in the final scene of the book. There is an Easter egg, and some of my friends and beta readers got it, some didn't. And so I just thought I would talk about the Easter egg here and confirm it for anybody who had the suspicion when they read it. So I want to tell you, in the last scene of the book, when Nolan talks to Marta, he mentions that she is wearing diamond earrings. If you remember, when Summer reflects on her friendship with Marta, she mentions that she had a pair of diamond earrings that Marta wanted when they were kids, and she never wore them because she felt guilty that she couldn't give them to Marta, who wanted them more than her. Do you see where this is going? Now, remember, last we heard, Marta's parents and Summer's mother had no idea that they weren't friends anymore. So when Summer's mother is making the uncomfortable phone calls to everyone, like Nolan's mom and the school and Tim and Summer's father, Marta's family is definitely on that list. And because Marta's parents have no idea either, they absolutely would have taken her over to Summer's house for condolences and to grieve together. Yeah, you can put the pieces together as to how Marta got the earrings. You know, maybe she stole them, and that was, you know, how she wins, so to speak. Maybe she asked Summer's mother for them as something to remember her by. Maybe that's too cruel, but they are Summer's earrings, and she did get them from Summer's house. I did almost have Summer leave a note to Marta willing her the earrings when she was going through her list of people to say goodbye to, but I wasn't sure it would take away from the scene, and my editor agreed it was better to just leave the mention of the earrings as an Easter egg. She and Marta already had their closure, so to speak, so I decided that scene was busy enough without adding a whole thing with her going back and forth if she should say anything to Marta and then ultimately deciding to leave her the earrings. I think it also says more about Marta's character, that she took advantage of the situation to win the childhood argument and get the earrings. But as I said, that none of that is explicitly written, so if your interpretation is that Summer willed Marta the earrings off camera, off screen, go with that. If your interpretation is that she asked Summer's mother for them, go with that. But the only thing I will confirm for you is that they are Summer's earrings that she has. And that was, it was important to me that she ended up with them for whatever you decide you want that to mean in your reading, you know, death to the author, but not literally, not literally. But yeah, as I said, I have sent my next project to my editor. I will talk about that in an upcoming video, but I wanted to get my Saving Summer videos done like I promised I would. So yeah, this has been 5 Facts with Spoilers. If you would like a copy of Saving Summer, it is still for sale on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, online only. The ebook is only available through Amazon, and it is on Kindle Unlimited now. Listen, I know how we feel about Amazon, but like, as an independent author, it's one of those necessary evils. So if you have Kindle Unlimited, no judgment, just, you know, maybe give me some money about it. Yeah, I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you're having a great day, and I almost said make good choices. That's what I say to my students when they're leaving my classroom. It is summer vacation. I still have teacher brain. Yeah, hopefully I will see you before I live like 10 more lifetimes and we will finish the Saving Summer video series, and then I will announce my next project. Bye.